Hello, Ray Phoenix here. Welcome to Let's Play Spyro the Dragon Part 10. We've cleared all the levels of the Magic Crafter's world now, and there's still a few remaining treasure gems in this world, so we'll go and find those remaining treasure gems. One of the things that really separates the homeworlds in this game from the homeworlds in the other Spyro games is the fact that the homeworlds in this game kind of are like levels of themselves. The fact there's actually enemies around, especially this one too. So many wizards around, that there's so many hazardous wizards around, always throwing their hazardous magic around at Spyro, trying to kill Spyro. You don't see any of that in the sequels. The sequels just thought, homeworlds should be homeworlds, so they don't put any enemies or any like hazards or things like that into the homeworlds in the sequels. Let's get this game, because in this game you're pretty much on your feet all the time, always trying to run away from enemies. There's no safety zones in this game. You're never safe and truly safe in this game. Spyro's never truly safe. But again, since when did Spyro ever have to be safe? We know how feisty he is and how powerful he is. He just fries everything that goes against him. That's why sheep were protesting this game. I think those are, oh yes, there we go. We got 3 of the remaining gems left. There are still 10 gems left in this level. Only 10 more gems remain. And I think I know where they are. Just jumping around, looking around. You're gonna spend the majority of your time constantly panning the camera around, trying to look for stuff. So it's at this platform thing right here. Oh yes, there it is. There's the locked box, which is locked. You need a key to find it. You need to go locate the key to open this up. Those things pretty much always contain gems. I don't think they contain anything other than gems in this game. They never contain product placements or things. That'd be fun if they actually made one that didn't have gems and instead just had a product placement in it, like be sure to drink plenty of Ovaltine or something, like whatever it was called or something like that. And you find it and it's like you did all that work just for a cruddy commercial for a product that doesn't even exist anymore. Or it'd be fun if it was an advertisement for the game you're playing. Kind of like in Mega Man and Bass, or the hardest data CD, where you call them the data discs, whatever you call them. The hardest one to find is one of the last ones you get in the game, and all it is just an advertisement for the game itself, an advertisement for what Mega Man and Bass is. Oh, Mega Man and Bass, and it's just this. Yeah, well, if you made it that far in the game, you probably know what the game is already, and already know what it has to offer, so an advertisement at that point would be kind of redundant. There's still the key we have to find right now. We're just gonna go find the key. It's located inside of a large mountain up there. It's like built inside like a hill, like a hill kind of thing. It looks like a hill that someone dug into. That's not a hill. It looks like, I don't know if that's a natural rock formation, right? It's just some sculpture thing over this blue liquid. Yeah, it's probably some sort of sculpture thing, actually. There's a blue liquid over there, blue liquid where Spyro sinks into it. There's no swimming at all in this game. Spyro doesn't swim in this game. He doesn't know how to swim. When he jumped into that water stuff in the first world, he pretty much drowned. Then again, I don't even think that stuff was water. It didn't look like water. It looked too gooey. I mean, it's probably some sort of blue goo, maybe some blue toxic goo that nasty Nork probably dumped into the water supply. They could have used that as like a subplot in this game, maybe about how nasty Nork took over the water supply supply, so when dragons drink the water, they turn to crystal. So now I have this world 100% complete, now pre. So now we've completely cleared the Magic Crafter's world. We can now go to the next world of the game, which is Beastmaker's world. The Beastmaker's world is pretty much a large breeding ground of where nasty Nork makes some of his most demented, deranged beasts that's imaginable. But of course, none of them are obviously going to be a match for Spyro, because nothing's too powerful for Spyro. Spyro could charge or flame down or destroy pretty much any enemy that tries to get in his way. So you go to the balloonist. He's going to say what a requirement was. It was for recovering so many of the eggs. And so it was eggs this time, because the requirements to go to the next world are not always the same thing. And we now have all the eggs in the game. Eggs, for some reason, only seem to exist in the first 3 worlds of this game. They didn't bother to spread them out throughout the course of the entire game. No, this one them confined into the first half of the game. It all seemed like maybe at first they were thinking, what could be this game's equivalent to the Power Stars from Super Mario 64? Could it be dragons, stones frozen in stone? Or maybe it's the eggs, like they weren't exactly sure. And they started programming both, and they thought, let's just keep it be the dragons and just forget about the eggs. We already programmed the eggs to be in this game, so let's just leave them as is. So it's like the game just completely gives up on finding eggs. Of course, they didn't abandon the egg idea. They eventually did reuse the egg idea in the third Spyro game. So the third Spyro game is all about finding the eggs. The third Spyro game, Spyro for a Year of the Dragon. And the Year of the Dragon is part of the reason why I'm playing all these Spyro games. It's 2024, the Year of the Dragon. And what's a better way to play, celebrate the Year of the Dragon by playing the Spyro games, right? It's always fun to play the Spyro games when it's the Year of the Dragon. Even when it's not the Year of the Dragon, I still play these Spyro games all the time. What else would you be playing? It's definitely not Call of Duty. It's definitely not Grand Theft Auto. Of course it's not. It's none of those. It's Spyro. Spyro's a lot better than any of those games combined together. So of course I always begin every homeworld in this game by, exploring the homeworld and collecting what there is to collect. There's always stuff to collect. Every world is an abundance of stuff to collect. This is the 4th world in the game, the 4th of the 6 worlds in the game, and Nasty Nork has those things that electrify the ground. So the ground must be made of metal then or something like that. If you can electrify the ground using those guys that electrify the floors, you can zap Spyro easy. There's another one of those locked crates, those locked chests, which would mean there's a key for it somewhere in this world, somewhere in this homeworld. I'll probably find that eventually. Most of the time I find stuff, it's usually by accident. I just roam around. So I didn't really use the internet much when I played this game back to heck, I didn't even like using the internet to find guides for games. I just like figuring out games by myself. I only liked using the internet when I get brutally stuck, which happens quite a bit actually. I get stuck all the time on games. There's this weird fan things that we've never seen in the games there where they collect gems, where they spit out gems of Spyro, breathe fire in them so many times. And there's this weird, looks like a pyramid almost, like some ancient pyramid that was probably built in like 3000 BC. And of course it's gonna have gems on it, and there's another dragon there that could be rescued. Rescued Bruno. Rescued another dragon. He's just gonna speak some useless nonsense about stuff we already know. Shut up, Bruno. We don't care about what you have to say. We don't care about what you have to say. We already know enough for this. We made it this far in this game. We must know this game pretty well if we already know this game, if we, made it this far. So you collected 136 gems. You're entering the Terrace Village. That sounds like a very threatening name for a level. Ooh, the Terrace Village. Yeah, this all is. Well, mostly gets its challenge the same way pretty much any other level in this game gets its challenge. Simply from hiding gems in places where we can't easily find them. That's how every level in this game, or most levels in this game, is challenging. The enemies in this game aren't that bad. It almost starts to become like Ratchet and Clank, where there's big enemies, small enemies, constantly shoot stuff at you, just like Ratchet and Clank. You see where that word Insomniac got all their ideas for the Ratchet and Clank games from, because there definitely was a lot of Spyro influence in Ratchet and Clank. And there's still a lot of gems every level, because every level of this game has to have at least several hundred gems for us to collect and enemies to kill, which will ultimately spawn gems. Spyro does all what he does just so he could have gems. I still wonder if they serve any bigger purpose as Spyro. Maybe Spyro lives off gems, maybe, or something. Maybe he does eat gems. That's how he survives. Maybe that's how his people survive, or something like that. They survive by eating gems. Actually are some creatures like that in some of the other Spyro games. Think that they're called gem cutters or something like that, or gem things or whatever it is, and they collect gems, and supposedly how they live or something like that, or they use gems, their magic on them, and it makes them turn to stuff. Well, it's possible to turn gems into things. That's how Nasty Nork got his army, was from turning gems into these enemies, which is why they spit out gems and we destroy them. And these things are kind of useless too, that's probably why they got rid of them in the sequels. Yeah, this does look like a village, like a typical swampy village kind of thing. Looks like a rundown village. This is probably like the more poverty-stricken areas of Spyro's Dragon Worlds. And there's like green goo, green molten goo. Probably it might be close to a nuclear power plant. Maybe this is where Nasty Nork. I know this place is supposed to be a breeding ground for Nasty Nork's creatures. Maybe there's also a nuclear power plant right now. Maybe the Dragon Worlds get their nuclear energy from this place, and Nasty Nork would take it over, of course, because Nasty Nork is willing to do all we can, so he could just so he could, imprison the dragons and pretty much rule over the Dragon Worlds. I know Nasty Nork, his species is supposedly Nork. That's what those things, those green things, they call them Norks. I don't know if they came from anything in mythology or something. It sounds almost like orc, like those mythical creature things called orcs are supposedly extremely powerful to the point where no real mortal thing could possibly kill an orc. And then it also reminds me too of a certain science fiction fantasy franchise I despise, Lord of the Rings. It's a boring series where nothing ever happens. It's just 3 movies of people walking and that's it. Spyro's a lot better than any of that, because Spyro isn't just 3 games of people walking. No, it's 3 games of a dragon running through levels, flaming stuff down and destroying them, and destroying enemies, and of course, collecting gems, because what Spyro does a lot of the time. I wonder what Spyro does more of those things, frying enemies or collecting gems, because these games do have a reputation for being very collection-based, mostly revolves around collecting objects and finding things and finding things and rescuing the dragons. Of course, well, it kind of counts as collecting stuff. It's all about collecting. Spyro's all about collecting. And apparently some of the later Spyro games are more battle-like games, almost like what Streets of Rage or Final Fight is. Imagine that. They made a Spyro game that was like Streets of Rage or Final Fight. They made a Pac-Man game that was like that, though. Seriously, they actually did. It was called Pac-Man World Free, the third game in the Pac-Man World trilogy, and it's a lot like Final Fight. We actually play as Pac-Man, and he sounds like Tobey Maguire. He actually uses his boxing gloves. He actually puts his boxing gloves to use, I guess you could say that. I used to wonder why he had boxing gloves in the first two Pac-Man World games. We never really used them for like boxing or fighting or any of that, but in Pac-Man World Free actually uses them to actually fight and combat against enemies. Those gloves actually serve, his boxing gloves actually serve a purpose. It wasn't just some useless thing. I don't know if the creators intended that or not, because Pac-Man World 3 was made by different people, made the first two Pac-Man Worlds, which is why it's not as well liked as the first two Pac-Man Worlds. It's still a decent game, but it's a popular least favorite among people. Most people say Pac-Man World 1 or World 2. I think World 2 is probably my favorite one. I like Pac-Man World 2, mostly because it's the only Pac-Man World game I've ever beaten to this day. I've played the Pac-Man World games quite a lot. I've played the first one tons of times. I've never beaten it before. I've played the second one a lot, and I actually have beat Pac-Man World 2, so I might do a Let's Play of that one eventually. I've mostly played the GameCube version of that game, and that's the version I'm mostly familiar with. I have an actual disc. It was accidentally left in a GameCube that I bought back in 2009 when I bought a silver space-age GameCube from someone, and actually had a copy of Pac-Man World 2 stuck in it. So that's how I got my disc of Pac-Man World 2. That also explains why I didn't have the instructions or the case for it or anything like that. It was just a loose disc. That's the same way I got T-Off for the Sega Dreamcast. Someone bought me a Sega Dreamcast while I was suffering from stomach flu in early 2011, and then I open it up and I find that it has T-Off in it, the golf game T-Off. I thought, whoa, T-Off, this is awesome. I didn't really say that actually, because I thought, it's a golf game. I'm not a fan of golf. I don't like golf. I mean, I still try playing the game. I still had some fun with the game for what I could have with a golf game, but it was never like really a favorite. I still consider it to be the first Dreamcast game I've ever owned, because technically it's the first Dreamcast game I've ever owned. But then shortly after, I went to some game store that I used to frequent a lot all the time. The same store I bought Spyro 1 from a few months later, and I bought Sega Rally 2, and I bought Sega Rally 2. What else did I buy? Oh yeah, I also bought the Midway Arcade's Greatest Hits for the Dreamcast as well too. The Dreamcast had some good arcade collections on it. Actually, quite a lot of those actually. It was on Dreamcast, a system that didn't even last very long. And Dreamcast is considered by many people one of the greatest short-lived systems ever. Whenever I tell people about Sega Dreamcast and I tell them that it didn't last very long, they're like, oh, so it didn't last very long, so it must have sucked then. No, it didn't suck. It actually was a pretty decent system. There's a huge modding community behind. There's still people like to make new games for the Dreamcast to this day, and they actually put them on actual discs. I wanted one of them once, but it was so frickin' expensive that I kind of just gave up on owning that. The Dreamcast games in general getting hard to find, and my Dreamcast has been on the fritz for years. I ain't sure it still works. I haven't used my Dreamcast in years, but I've been kind of like in the spirit lately of finding old gaming systems and turning them on and using them and stuff like that, so yeah, I probably will be using the Dreamcast. I probably will be playing my Dreamcast again soon, and rediscovering all the best games that Sega Dreamcast has to offer. So I'm just looking for the last of those gems up there. I think they're right up there. There's some more gems over there. There's like a crate box there. We have to get to those. I know there's those firework things that we could jump on, and we could send the firework flying off and going into the crate, the heavy metal crate box. Those heavy metal crates I don't think can be broken by Spyro at all. I actually could break them if he had a supercharged power-up, or possibly that flame power-up, or that fairy kiss Spyro, and then he had the flame ability, the flame power, but I don't think Spyro... Oh, well, there's obviously none of that in this level, so I don't think you can take it to upper levels, too. It's never permanent. It's never there is no permanent flame upgrade for Spyro in this game. Heck, I don't think Spyro has any upgrades at all, because the next Spyro games technically introduce upgrades for Spyro, where Spyro learns new abilities, and Insomniac is a big believer, and if you earned an ability in one game in a series, why should you have to earn it again? Why should you have to, really go out of your way to get it again? You got it once before, so it should stay with you. That's why I noticed that they do that same thing in the Ratchet and Clank series. They do that same thing in the Ratchet and Clank series, where it's like, It's where it's like, if you earned this weapon, earned this upgrade for Clank in the previous game, why should you have to get it again? So they don't make you get it again. Instead, they just give it to you right off the bat. Or, for the case of weapons, they have it set where if you have a memory card for PS2 and you're using the same memory card that you're using to play a previous Ratchet and Clank game with, you could get the weapons either for free or at a discount price. Your weapons from previous Ratchet and Clank games, which makes some of the Ratchet and Clank games in the PS2 some of the only PS2 games that I know of that have games that interact with game data for other memory cards. That was a bit of a concern because the PS1 memory cards are pathetically small, so you have to create a lot of them in emulators for these games. They even have it set so it creates a new memory card for each and every single different game that I have. But so pretty much every game would rate it as, oh, you have a memory card, it's one thing on here, this one game only, and that's it. Which wouldn't be good if you have a PS1 game that interacts with data from other games. I don't think there are any games in the PS1 that do that, so I don't think there, or at least none that I know of, so that's never been an issue. And I don't even know how these emulators sometimes would work with multi-disc games. I think you could like do a swap disc or something like that to play multi-disc games. But I don't know, I only ever owned one multi-disc PS1 game my entire life. I actually did a Let's Play of it 4 years ago. It's Star Wars Rebel Assault 2 Hidden Empire. So I think we've completely cleared the Terrace Village. Now we've got the whole level 50. We'll have this whole game 59% complete now. We have almost 60% of this game completed. And then we can just exit the level now, and yeah, because it's 100% complete. I never leave a level unless it's 100% complete, and this level appears to be 100% complete. So I guess we could leave this level then, and return to the Beast Maker's world. Returning home, or just returning home is what it always says. It'll just give us a bunch of gems. We'll add it up to our total treasure. This is Ray Phoenix signing out.